Hi, friends. How are you doing today? All good? I hope so. Be very welcome to the Arsenicus channel, and I hope that you guys will have a good time here and possibly learn something that can be useful for your life. Okay? Today, after a couple of months, I'm gonna continue a series that I named The Life of a Father. For the ones who are new, I decided to create three different series, which are called the Life of the Father, the Life of the Single Man, and the Life of the Married Man. And yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about those three topics, and the motivation is that it is not right or wrong what you should do in life when it comes to those three things. But I believe that as someone who has some experience about it, that could be useful to give my point of view about that. I don't know, maybe someone can benefit from it. And in the first video, I talked about what motivates you to become a father. What makes you feel like have children? Each one has different motivations, but yeah, I talked about it. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about teaching. What can you teach? What can you pass on? How can you prepare your kids to be good people? And I wrote down a couple of topics, which is number one: pass on what you have learned from your family. I'm sorry, I was a bit distracted because I am in front of a lake, and probably the lake will be shown in the video. And there was a lady swimming in the water. But the thing is, this audio is being recorded on September 2022, and the temperature today is about 14 degrees Celsius. And swimming in a so cold water can be quite a challenge, so my respects to her. But yeah, she's gone. So, what have you learned from your parents or from your caregivers that you can use for your kids? You see, this topic is quite interesting because we have things that were quite extreme, and what I notice, I think it happens quite a lot, quite frequently, is that if someone traumatized us, we tend to do the opposite. I give an example. Say that your parents, they were very strict with you. You could do nothing, and you felt very frustrated about it. There are people that tend to do the opposite. Okay, I suffered from my parents in with the strict way that they treated me, and I'm gonna give a lot of freedom to my kids. They can do basically everything they want to. In the first case, I think that the parents create a sort of person that can become insecure in life. And in the second case, actually, in the second case, it's pretty much the same. because if the person has no boundaries, the person doesn't know what is right and what is wrong, tends to think that the world belongs to him. Or and in the end, the person can realize that, yeah, it is completely wrong and the ways are not good. And maybe he won't know how to relate to other people because he could do everything he wanted to. And in life, we must have limits. That's how I see things. So it is good to make an evaluation and to try to distantiate yourself from the situation, because if you have a kid, if you have kids, if you're a father, I think that you must learn how to do things in the right balance. My creation, for example, the way I was raised, was in some terms very strict. In other terms, not so much. And I try to regulate this. Okay, what was not good for me and what cannot be good for my kids. In my case, for example, I have learned to be strict with my kids. I have to give the orders and they have to obey. They're just kids. But I also like to have some sort of freedom. I cheat something. But at some point, my idea is that the basic, the expected is that I'll die before them. So I'm trying to raise them. It is a sort of cliche, but I'm trying to raise them in a way they can become independent. So I give the orders, I say what they should do, what they should not do. But sometimes I just don't say nothing. I wait for them to see how can they do without my presence or without my orders. And today, for example, I had a very pleasant gift surprise. The place we live is very common that people use bicycle for pretty much everything. And we were riding our bicycles going to the school. I just dropped my kids to school. And there is some traffic. And I didn't tell them to stop or to go on. I was behind them and I was waiting for them to take their own decisions. And they sort of stopped. And then there was a lady riding a car, and the lady stopped as well and made a sign for us to cross the street. And my kids just passed by and made a sort of thumbs up as a sign of thank you for letting me go on. But they stopped. They were conscious that they could not simply go on. So I've been training them, me and my wife, of course. We've been training them to know how to ride a bicycle properly. And they've been learning. But say that I would simply every time tell them what to do, they may become very insecure. So, yeah. See what you have learned, what was good, and what you can pass on. And what was not good, think of not pass on, and maybe try to solve your own traumas and not do the opposite. Think that you're raising your kids is not a lab, is not a way to cure your traumas. It can be as a consequence, but think that your kids are more important than your traumas. It's very important. I've been talking quite a lot about traumas, but I think it is very important, not for our kids only, but also for ourselves. Okay, how do you teach them? Each one has his own way to teach things. Some people are more for the practice, other people are more inclined to the theory. But I think that one important thing when it comes to how to raise your kids is try to find a balance between who you are and who your kids are. We are different people and we may have different characters. And it is quite important. For example, say that your kid is more inclined to learn things with the theory by hearing. So maybe it is important to explain to your kid some things. But say that he's more inclined to learn with the practice. I think it is important to get to know your kids. I think it can be very effective in terms of teaching them, in terms of even to relate to them, getting to know what's their love language, for example. Yeah, it's deep. Okay, authority. That's another interesting topic. Authority it became actually not, but it seems that some people see authority as a relative thing. I don't know. I am an old school guy in terms of respect, and for me it's very clear. Our kids must respect us, full stop. But we also have to respect our kids. And how do we do that? I think that respect to our kids must come in terms of respecting their boundaries, respecting their nature, talking to them in a proper way. For example, recognizing your mistakes when you commit, and giving them what they need and not necessarily what they want. And respect from your kids to you is, for me, that your kids will listen to you and do what you say. And it is very important to mention, not doing what you say because you want to, but doing what you say because they know that you love them and what you're saying is on behalf of their own goodness. It is very important. When the authority comes without love, it becomes tyranny. And that's not what our kids need. Our kids need safety, love, attention. You see? So I think that when your kids realize that what you're telling them to do must be done because it is good for them, even though they don't understand, that's respect and that's authority. That's how I see things. So say that you have a kid and you tell him not to go somewhere. For me, depending on the age of your kids, you don't even need to give an explanation or say no to something. Oh, may I do this? No. Oh, why not? No. Depending on the age, you can say something, you can give an explanation, but sometimes you don't really need to. But again, if your motivation is love, then it's fine. So that's how I see things, because when you love, you want the best. So whether you say yes or no to something, you're doing this using the love as your main motivation. Does it make sense for you guys? If you agree or disagree, you can leave in the comments. I think that authority, it is also a very important thing, and mostly for the ones who still have babies, for the ones who have small kids, toddlers. I think that the authority is normally not raised from one day to another. It is a construction. So I think that I don't know, there are some people who don't practice the authority when the kids are small, and they think that they can have authority when the kids grow up. I think it is quite difficult, because if your kids learn that they don't need to respect you when they are young, there is a little chance that they respect you when you become older. That's what I see by looking at other people. So I think it is something that you can think about. Proximity. It is also another thing. Some people, they commit a huge mistake by thinking that loving your kid is giving them what they want to in material terms. And some people think that giving presents is an effective way to show love. It can be, but it is not the only way. Or it is definitely not the first way, or working too much to give them a good education. Sometimes all your kid wants, or most of the time, all your kid wants is your presence. Is having the feeling that he's being seen by you, that he has a priority in your life. It is very, very important. I can share something with you guys that happened to me when I was already a grown up. I was already an adult, but still depending on my parents. I saw randomly an agenda of my father, and he's a very organized person, and he likes to take notes of the things, to write down his compromises and things like this. And I think that his agenda was open one day, I don't know, and I was curious about his compromises, his things to pay and related issues. And I saw my name in the list, and seeing my name on the list gave me such a good feeling that he cared about me. It is quite funny because I know that, but I don't know, when you have some proof, even though, and especially when it is unintentional, it gave me a good feeling. Look, I am in his agenda. Remembering that I was already grown up. So, good feeling, So how close you are to your kid, or to your son or daughter. Another thing, external influence. People who tell you what you must do. That's a very complicated topic, especially when it comes to family members, like your parents, aunties, or even close friends. One thing is, for me, crystal clear. We know by heart a lot of what we must do with our kids in terms of raising them well, But there are, of course, things that we don't know. For example, I live in a foreign country, and when the first baby was born, I was trying to learn. I was communicating in the first months with the baby in the local language, which is not my own language. But I always wanted my kids to speak also the Portuguese, the Brazilian Portuguese language, which is my native language. But I've never practiced. I never did anything related to this. And one day we got a visit from a Brazilian friend of us who is married to a local person, but their kids speak a good Portuguese. And I was talking to her, and I gave her a compliment, and I asked, "But how did you do this?" And she said, "I simply talked to them." As simple as it seems. And I've learned something. And from that moment on, I started speaking in Portuguese with my kids. So, we have to accept that we don't know everything and that we can learn from other people. But we also have the other side of the story. We have people who want to influence our lives and the way we raise our kids, even though we disagree. And even worse, when you don't give permission. So I think that we also need to protect our kids and ourselves from those types of influence. Sometimes it can be very challenging because you need to get in conflict with someone simply to remember the person that the responsibility of the kids is ours, it's not hers. And yeah, at some point some things must stop. Some people have parents who respect how we raise the kids, other people have parents that don't respect. So it is crucial that we can find a way to even respecting them, but that we can also give a limit. My kid is gonna do what I want them to do, not what you want. It can be difficult. I've been through some of those issues before, and luckily or fortunately, we have no many problems about that at the moment. Yeah. Another topic is, are you and your wife, if you have a one, following the same line when it comes to raise your kids? It's also very challenging. There are people who are very different from each other in terms of education, in terms of backgrounds. And if they decide to get married, I think that it is very important that it can be, that agreements can be made. Ideally, before the kids are born, because it can avoid a lot of problems in the future. I know, for example, a couple where the guy is a Muslim person and the wife is a Christian. But I never talked to them so deep about this, but I think that maybe they made an agreement before their kid was born. And the kid goes to a Christian church. So the kid is being raised under a Christian culture or life, which is good, and the Muslim part accepted this. but say that they don't talk about it and they both have a strong opinion about how to raise the kids. One wants to raise under the Muslim religion and the other one under the Christian religion, or someone who is not a Christian or is an atheist and the other part is a religious person. Problems can be avoided. One, if the both parts follow the same line in life, I think that actually the marriage tends to be much better or much easier. And two, that agreements can be made in order to avoid problems. So, if you are under one of the circumstances, have you talked openly with your partner about the future? Maybe it is a good idea, I guess, but it is up to you to decide. Let me see if there is any other topic in terms of teaching. Yeah, I think that I said pretty much everything I had to. And I hope you guys have, maybe learned something new, or even have the chance to think about some of the topics. I can, of course, be wrong in some of the topics here, and I'm open to that. So if you have comments about it, I'll be more than happy to read on the comments. Okay? Thank you very much for being here. I wish you a very nice day. Yeah. And yeah, what else can I say? Be happy. All right. God bless. Bye bye.